Hello and welcome to Nighthawk Racing and the hashtag F1RST Championship. Firstly, I'm Sarah Hawkey. You can find myself and the rest of our drivers here on the Nighthawk Racing YouTube channel. You can also check out the entire back catalogue of seasons 1 to 3 of the F1RST series, mini-series and off-championship events and one-off race events, all of which are highly competitive and a lot of fun. Also, please check out our Instagram and TikTok for other content and races there. Link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen for more information. But now, it's time to focus on the event at hand. So tonight is round 1 of season 4 and in this video we'll be covering the red lobby here at Lake Maggiore West. Before we get into tonight's race, I'm just going to give you a little bit more information about the event itself and the championship as a whole. So as you can see on screen at the moment is our calendar. We have a 10 race championship calendar going to several different tracks that GT7 has to offer. The racing itself will be divided into 2 lobbies, the red and the blue lobby. There are 2 racing events with a qualifying session, and the order of the events is the qualifying session comes up first. This sets a grid for the feature race. Next up is the sprint race, which is based on reverse average points scored, and then we go straight into the feature race, and like I said earlier, the qualifying session sets the grid for the feature race. So, up first on the racing events of the night is the sprint race. The sprint race will be 12 laps and 75% fuel. The grid is formed via how the drivers line up in the reverse average points scored across the season for a rolling start. Next up we have the feature race at 49 laps. All drivers must use 2 different compounds of tyres in this race, whilst also starting on the grid on the compound that they set their fastest lap in qualifying earlier. And as a reminder, during the lobby tonight, in the blue lobby, drivers have full driver aids such as traction control, ASM and ABS. And in the red lobby, they only have ABS enabled on the driver aids, that hardcore driving experience to really challenge our drivers. So while the drivers are qualifying, we won't bother them too much and we'll talk about the track itself. So, giving you a little bit of information about the track. We're driving an Autodrome Lago Maggiore West layout. It's a fictional circuit that appears in Gran Turismo Sport as well. It's a 2.5 mile circuit or 4.168 kilometers, and it uses turn 1 and 2, the first shortcut, and then turn 11 through 17 of the full GP circuit layout that some people might know a little bit better. But despite its appearance, this is actually a mostly mid-speed section of the track, while also using the high-speed approach turn 11 and full back straight, and in my opinion this is one of the most thrilling sections of the circuit. And it is like I said, it is a fictional circuit. It is based in Lake Maggiore in Italy, and I'm sure we'd all love it to be a real track, because it's quite fun to drive, especially that kind of banked apex hairpin. Be wary, it can catch you out sometimes, and there's gravel right on the exit, which definitely has caught me out a few times, but I'm sure all the drivers are going to enjoy. But let's go and see how they all qualified. Right, so here is the sprint race starting grid for the red lobby, our first one of the season. And normally, if you've been obviously with us for the past seasons, our sprint race is reverse average points scored grid, but as it's race 1, we don't have any points just to go off just yet. So what we've decided to do here is reverse the quali results that took place earlier. And I'm going to pass you over to Midnight, who's going to run through the first half of the grid, and then I'll take over.
Spot on, thank you, Sarah. So, first up, we have maybe what might be seen as a little bit of tactical play. The Dark Lord, we know he's extremely fast, but this on a reverse grid, he's going to be sitting in pole, so maybe a little bit of tactical play there, coming in at round 1. Someone who is a multi-podium and race winner, so someone to watch out for here. And next one is our Season 3 champion in the GTR, KD the Kai, this time in the GTR. In P3, he had a strong end to the end of Season 3. So Kirk, this time in the Viper, in the Toro Rosso livery, he is going to be after a good result here today. Next up, one of our rookies, Mercedes X50. in that Porsche 911, the Year 1 team. Again, looking for a good result in his first race in the F1 RST series. And P5, we have another returning driver, Jabril, who featured very heavily in the non-championship events, particularly in the rain, in that Ford GT. So he is definitely looking good in the pre-season, and he's definitely going to be in the hunt for some podiums and or wins. In P6 we have Pedro, finished P2 in Season 3, came so close to picking up more wins than what he did, and even finishing on the top step in the championship. He's going to be in the hunt this season yet again, but he has switched to BMW power this series. In P7 we have another returning driver, this time in the Toyota Supra, of Coach, head of Fisutu Racing, and he is 100% going to be on it from race 1 in Maggiore, and he's going to be looking for big results, big points straight off the bat. And with that, I'm going to pass you over back to Sarah.
Thank you very much. So moving on to P8, we have another new addition to the Nighthawk Racing grid in FRL Charlie. He's decided to go into the Ford GT. I'm excited to see how he gets on. But going to P9, we have Oliver Smalley in the Alpha 4C, a car that we don't see much of these days, so I'm very excited to see how he gets on. And in P10 we have another returning driver in Sophie, continuing her her journey in the Ferrari 458, and we all know how well she did in Season 3, so I'm excited to see that pairing back again, and hope she has a good race today. And starting in P11 we have our very own Midnight ISO, co-founder of Nighthawk Racing, back in the Mclaren 650S. I wouldn't be surprised about that, because he's always in the McLarens. If you know him, he's got about 8 McLarens in his garage, but if I could say any more about that I would. But in P12 we have Koulios. He's gone for a little bit of a different car this season. He's always gone for picking the unique cars. He's gone for the NSX, hoping that it's a little bit gives him a bit more confidence than the BRZ, because we all know how unpredictable that BRZ was last season. So hoping for a good race for Koulios, and obviously a new car that he needs to get adjusted to. And starting in P13 we have Sophia. She is a returning driver as well, but she's opted to go in the Audi R8 this season. So new cars and new people across the grid. I'm excited to see how everyone gets on. Right, let's go see how everyone won in the sprint race.
Let's head over to our commentary team for the Red Lobby round 1 at Maggiore. Going to head over and see our very own McManley and Sarah Hawkey.
Welcome everybody to Lago Maggiore in Italy. Here we are for the first race of Season 4. Here's the sprint race. We got Dark Lloyd leading us out down the straight into turn 1. Here we go, guys. Let's get this party started. We've got Dark Lloyd well out in front already, with Kai and Nissan behind him, and of course Kirk rounding out that top 3. We've got someone going wide into the grass there, might have been Kai, I believe, as we see a crash in the background between Coach and another driver. That might have been OS Racing, I believe, who's been spun around, or potentially spun around there, into the first corner. Quite a tight pinch, that first corner. There's a nice left-hander into a right hairpin. It's just so easy to get it wrong, especially when you got a driver alongside you. On the outside, we see here now, we've got going up the straight, we see OS Racing kicking up a bit of dirt. We've got Sophia and Coach here, potentially Sophia going to launch a move down into this right-hand hairpin. Yes, she is, down the inside. That's a lovely banked corner, and she's going to get the better exit and get up into 8th position. We are now just going to conclude this first lap. Of course, this is the west variant of the track, so it is a bit shorter than the GP version. We've got Koulios here on the inside of Midnight, down the inside of this right-hander. Of course, it is a kind of double apex right-hander, but it's you've got a really nice short straight before that second right-hander, as we are coming to round out this lap now. Dark Lord just coming up across the line in a second, with Kurt behind him, and then Kai. We've got Coach battling against Koulios there, and Koulios going to get a lovely switchback out of that left-hander. It's been an interesting first lap, Sarah.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I was wondering what fuel the Dark Lord had in that his car, because he's shot off. But we've had Katie the Kai spinning around after that second corner, and we all know how difficult it is when you put the power down there. It's likes to kind of, there's no traction coming out of that corner, but yeah, very good first lap, very close between a lot of the drivers, and like I say, this West layout, it's so tight. Some of the sectors where you try and, you know, race side by side, you're fearing for your life.
Yeah, definitely. As we see at Midnight here trying to launch a move on Coach the Supra versus the McLaren. Round the outside, Midnight tries, but that's not going to work. We've got Kudus going off up ahead there. He's going to rejoin, and Midnight and Coach are going to say, thank you very much, I'm getting a new position. But Midnight wants more than that. He's going to try with Coach into the S, but it's not going to work for now. Touching a bit of the grass there is OS Racing trying to get up a position on Kudus as well. But yeah, as you said, we had a spin there earlier in the lap from Kai with this different layout from the GP layout. It's that right-hander, that right-hand hairpin, that exit is very tight. The curbing, there's not a lot of curbing on that exit. Very easy to touch a wheel into the grass and spin round, but we see Kudus getting overtaken by Charlie there as they head round the final corner to round off the second lap.
Yeah, and obviously Charlie, new to F1 RST, doing well so far. I've got to say, you know, his debut, he's doing quite a good job in P10, and I'm sure obviously he'll be using the sprint races, a little bit of practice, kind of see how his competitors around him drive, so he can really kind of attack in the feature race. Yeah, this battle between Midnight and Coach is still brewing. Obviously, Coach back in his beloved Supra, and I'm sure he's very happy about that. Last season, I believe he was in the Mercedes. So obviously back in a preferred car. We see Midnight with a little bit more overspeed, looking for that outside line going into the hairpin here. Can he get the move done, or will he wait? Or he just tucks in just behind Coach again, but we've had an off from Sophie in that Ferrari 458, which is obviously is going to lose her at least 4 positions here with Katie the Kai not too far behind.
Yeah, we've seen Sophie really extract pace on that 458 on many occasions, but I've always said it's a very temperamental car. Sometimes can just swap on you in an instant, as we see now Kai going round the outside, trying to gain P11 for himself. But Sophie's not going to let him have it. Down the inside of that right-hander, and he's going to keep the position for now, but Kai is still alongside, and of course we'll have the inside line for this final corner, this lovely sweeping left-hander, and will end up getting that position in the end. But yeah, that was an unfortunate mistake. So actually, Sophie is going to get a massive exit off of that left-hander. Is going to retake the position heading into turn 1. Sophie really put up a fight to Kai in the early stages of this race.
Yeah, and obviously on lap number 4 now, most of the drivers will be settling into the race. But we've got a battle between obviously P7 all the way down to at least P12. So obviously a lot of positions that can be gained here from Katie the Kai if, you know, he bides his time well. But yeah, going up a little bit further up the grid, we've got still in the lead. We've got the Dark Lord. I don't know what fuel he's got in that Supra, because that start was basically like he was driving a rocket. Not too far behind, we've got Kirk, who this season he's picked a car that no one else has picked in that Dodge Viper, and I think he's kind of still settling into that car, you know, learning, you know, that it's very fast, but on some aspects of it, it's a bit of a challenging car, don't you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I have to say as well, just to point out, Midnight. Also, you see Charlie kick up a bit of grass there, nearly spinning around, manages to save a brilliant save from the Ford GT driver. But I just want to mention as well that there's a brilliant battle brewing between Midnight and Coach here. We've got Coach as they head out of the S's, sticking to that inside line, and it's forcing Midnight to go on to the outside. With that bank corner, the inside is definitely the preferred line for overtaking, and Coach is doing an amazing job here in that Supra, just hold up Midnight for as long as he can and keep him behind. We might see it again on this lap. We'll see Midnight get a good run out of the Estes, but Coach covering the inside line, so Midnight can't do anything about it. As we see Kai and Charlie side by side here as we head through the Estes. I love this section of the track, lovely high speed section onto the straight. It just gives drivers a brilliant chance to overtake. As we see now, we'll see towards the front, you see once again Coach taking that inside line with Midnight. Big force on the outside, bit of contact there, but it's okay, both stay settled. And Midnight once again has to concede, but will try the outside line into the left-right section right here. You can see Coach covering the inside once again. Brilliant defending from the US driver.
Yeah, and he definitely doesn't want to give that position up just yet. Obviously, just behind as well, we've got Koulios making a move on Midnight now as well. So obviously Midnight, after that little battle with Coach, has lost the place to Koulios, and Sophie's not too far behind. We'll be looking to kind of try and get past Midnight to reignite that battle with Koulios. But yeah, I've got to say, the Supra of Coach, I think that pairing is a world-class pairing. He likes driving that Supra, so it's good to see him back comfortable in a car that he's can drive really well in. But just looking across, obviously, everyone was really close together. I thought obviously it's quite a small track anyways, but I thought obviously 6 laps in, halfway into the sprint race, a lot of the drivers would be a little bit more spaced out, but it just goes to show how fast and how kind of similar in pace all these drivers are.
Yeah, definitely. And just to point out as well, we've got, I think, all these cars are different manufacturers. We've got the Toyota, as you mentioned, we've got the NSX, we've got the McLaren of Midnight, and the Ford GT of Charlie as well. It's all different manufacturers, so it's just showing that the different car manufacturers can in fact be on the same pace and fight together perfectly fine and have no pace differences whatsoever. So it's brilliant to see that, because of course sometimes you can get very bored of the classic, you'll see the Porsches or the Mercedes constantly dominating, but it's definitely good to see all of them in the mix right there.
Yeah, and obviously the Ford GT, we saw it have a really good race around the Daytona Oval last season. I'm not sure how it kind of fares on, I'd say normal tracks. Obviously the Oval is a very different track to, all the tracks we had last season and this season. So I'm interested to see how the Ford GT in general gets on this season, as we see Sophia pitting. Is that Koulios as well, pitting halfway into the sprint race? Not something that you normally see, but they have decided to go for that soft set of tyres, so obviously didn't bring them that far into the race.
Yeah, of course, these tyres are very different from previous seasons, where we see that once you get down to kind of the more red levels on the tyre meter in the bottom left corner, you just start to lose all grip completely, which is different from previous seasons where you could just run the tyre straight down to 0%. You just can't do that anymore. You run out of grip too fast, you end up being way slower than someone that's on the medium tyres. We look up to the front right now. We've got Dark Lord straight out ahead in P1, well ahead of Kirk right now, as we see there might be a battle brewing here, between Mercedes and Kirk. The Viper versus the Porsche. I'm surprised actually. The Viper's doing very well right now. We know that Viper's a challenging car. We know it got a buff in the last update, but it can be a challenge. It can be not the best on fuel efficiency. So even though you gain some time with it being a bit of a faster car, you're going to lose time trying to save that fuel. You're going to be short shifting. You're going to be putting it in different fuel modes. So we'll have to see now. Will Kirk be able to bring this car at the end of the race and also keep Mercedes behind him?
Yeah, obviously going on to lap number 8, he's got to hold on at least 4 more laps. Hopefully he can do it, and obviously starts this season pretty good with a podium position on a sprint race. But also the last lap we had a little bit of a move. Oliver in that Alpha 4C, which again is a very different car to what we normally see. Last season it was a lot of the McLarens and Mercedes. It's, like you said, it's good to see the different manufacturers. And I had a sneak peek in practice. That 4C is very good on fuel and tyres, so I think Oliver is definitely cooking up a strategy here for that first stint in the feature race, and also making a move on Midnight into that late break-in hairpin that we're just going to enter now. I believe that was KD Lakai serving a penalty there, so he's moved out of the way. He's lost a little bit of time towards Coach and Sophie, and Sophie obviously managing to get a few positions up after that kind of off she had a few laps ago. But I've got to say, it's very dominant from the Dark Lord here. Ever since that start, he's had no mistakes so far. He's just cruising at the minute out in front.
Yeah, I mean, the two Supras of Dark Lord and Coach seeming to command this race right now, and you can see the performances paying off. Coach is still holding back Sophie, Otis Racing, Midnight, all those drivers behind, employing that. You saw it again right there. Sophie being forced to take the outside line into that right-hand bank corner. So he's definitely doing very well for himself right now. As you can see, that Supra performing extremely well under these conditions on this track, and just as well some really strategic, some really good strategies that Coach is employing to keep these drivers behind. As we see now, Mercedes and Kirk fighting up here at the front, and we've had to change positions, but this means now Kirk will have a run into this right-hander, and Mercedes does not defend that inside line. That may be a mistake. That may mean that Kirk will get past here on the inside. He is past, but will Mercedes have the exit? Yes, he will. They're side by side. They bang wheels a small bit as they head into this left-hander. Kirk on the inside, but that'll be Mercedes on the inside for this right-hander right here, as we see as well. I think we've got a fight behind between Ford GT and the M6. Pedro just trying to get past there, not able to make a move for now, as Mercedes is going to keep ahead of Kirk as well, managing to get that inside line for the right-hander and just pull ahead before this last sector. We have, it looks like we've lost Sophie somewhere, have we? We've got OS Racing now up in P7. Yes, Sophie may have made a mistake or had to start a penalty or something. That would probably, we see a spin as well. Front end damage, that is not the best of outcomes for the Ferrari driver. Was doing very well there, having a good fight with coach, but unfortunately we has made a mistake that we haven't seen, and that leaves OS Racing and coach now being the ones fighting for this P6 position. We'll see OS trying around the outside and now the inside for the right-hander.
Yeah, I believe I spotted she made a mistake coming out of that hairpin, but also, like you say, that Ferrari, when it goes to spin, there's no catch, and it is incredibly difficult to catch that car mid-spin. But also, I wanted to point out Sophia, who pitted obviously a few laps ago now to change those tyres. She's already back up into P9, right on the rear bumper of Midnight, possibly looking for a move here into this hairpin. And obviously Midnight likes to brake late, but who's going to brake later? Sophia brakes are a lot later than Midnight there, getting that move kind of done. No, Midnight's not giving up just yet, but I think with Sophia braking that a little bit later, she could put that speed down a lot quicker than Midnight. She's here to challenge coach already.
Let me just close out. OS Racing making a fantastic move on coach there. Just as I stopped talking, we saw OS Racing on the outside, but coach might have been caught napping a small bit. Coach instinctively went to the inside line, but that then was the outside line for the next corner. So managed OS Racing just managing to get ahead and stay ahead as well, crucially building that gap so there was not any slipstream on that straight for coach to catch back up. And Sophia has now overtaken coach, and coach under threat of Midnight and Kai as they enter one into the crash. There's a little bit of contact there, I believe. Looks like Midnight and coach got off in turn one.
Yeah, I believe what happened there was Katie Dekai and Midnight obviously just behind coach. Midnight trying to break that a little bit later and just caught coach's rear bumper there. Obviously a little bit of damage for coach, but it's good sportsmanship from Midnight waiting there and waiting for coach to rejoin the track. Obviously sprint race, that damage will repair itself, but I believe it's gone unnoticed, but Pedro has he's just overtaken Jabril, and he's already on the back of Kirk's rear bumper. So with obviously just one lap left to go, can Kirk hold on to that final podium position?
Yes, a very good question. We've seen the M6 interesting choice of Pedro. We've of course seen him choose many cars over the last 2 seasons. We've seen Mercedes as of recently, of course, and now is going on to challenge for that P3 against Kirk. So that would be interesting to see. Will Kirk be able to fend off the Portuguese driver? They're going on to the final lap now. Pedro's going to try the inside into turn one. Late braking from Pedro, manages to get ahead, so he's got the move done, but does Kirk have anything to say against that? Going for that wider line to get a better exit from Kirk, but he's touched the grass. Not sure if he's going to get that exit. As we see now, OS Racing under threat from Sophia on those new tires, as you mentioned, coming out of the pits as of recently. As we see now up here, going out of the SSO, bit of dirt kicked up there from Kirk. As is Kirk going to have any slipstream, any help to get past Pedro into this right-hander? It doesn't look like he's going to try. Make the move, there's a bit of contact, and Pedro is onto the gravel. And I wonder now, is Kirk going to keep this, going to take this position, or is he going to give it back? Looks like Kirk's going to give it back. Fair play to him, and Pedro moves back up in that P3 position. I was so close for Kirk to make the move, but just unfortunately Pedro shutting that door, and there was contact, of course.
Yeah, we look like we're going to have a move on Oliver, making a move on Jabril, and ooh, it looked like a very late breaking move there from Sophia, and she just catches Jabril's bumper. I don't know what happens to Jabril. He's lost a little bit of ground to these two. Maybe that'll be one for the stewards to look at afterwards. But obviously Sophia back into P6 after that pit stop. She looks like she's obviously will be her final position, but very close to catching Oliver again. But Mac, if you want to run through the rest of the grid that are finishing.
Yeah, sure. We got Dark Lord, of course, taking P1 with Mercedes in P2. Pedro getting that P3 on the final lap of the race. Kirk in 4th position. OS Racing in 5th after that contact between Jabril and Sophia. Jabril on older tyres, and which led to Jabril actually losing P7 to Kai at the end of the race. Charlie in P9. We got Coach 10th. Midnight 11th, Koulios 12th, and Sophie after that dreadful spin with the 458 in P13.
Yeah, quite a tough sprint race obviously to start off with. A very kind of a track that you've got to be, your concentration's got to be top level all of the time with those, late braking, tight corners. Obviously, it was quite good to see everyone getting around nice and cleanly. Obviously, but obviously. First race of the season, I think we're always bound to see a few people maybe testing their brake markers, testing kind of their competitors around them, but overall it was a pretty good race to start off with. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there was some really good battles in that race. Dark Lord just with that absolutely dominant win, no challenge whatsoever from the drivers behind for that race. And then we had Mercedes, of course, in P2, leading a good race. We didn't talk about him much, but he was there in the background and he got P3 from Kirk when it mattered and stayed ahead of him, and of course stayed ahead of Pedro, who was chasing there towards the end. I think very good race. Now, there was a few incidents, of course, but it is the first race back. It's going to be the first time some of these guys are driving in a good while. So hopefully the endurance race we can have a bit less kerfuffle and a bit more action on track.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Let's go and watch the feature race now.
Okay, and after that sprint race, we'll move on to the qualifying results for the feature race. Just as a reminder, all drivers that qualify on a compounder tyre have to start the feature race on that tyre. So I'm going to hand you over to Sarah, who's going to take you through the top half of the grid.
Thank you very much for that, Midnight. So starting off in pole position, we have Sophia in that Audi R8, setting an astonishing time of a 1:20.925. I don't know how she did it, because I've never got anywhere close to that time, but that just shows you how fast she really is. But in P2 we have Koulios setting his time on the soft compounded tyres with a 1:21.195. We then in P3 have our very own Midnight ISO, also setting his time on the soft compound of tyres with 1:21.247. So even there you can see how close Midnight was to getting that second place in the qualifying. In P4 we then have Sophie in the 458, setting a time of 1:21.528. We then have one of our first rookies in Oliver in the Alpha 4C, setting a time of a 1:21.568. So again, incredibly close to Sophie there. And in P6 we then have FRL Charlie setting a time of a 1:21.632. And then in P7, also again setting his time on the soft compounded tyres, we have Coach in that Supra with 1:21.640. And I'm going to pass you over to Midnight, who's going to run through the rest of the grid.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So yes, in P8 we have Pedro in that M6 on the medium tyre, setting a 1:21.653. Pretty decent and close time there to cope, so you can see how close that grid is there. But in P9, Jabril, that 4GT, maybe not entirely suited to this track, but definitely doing himself justice, getting a 1:21.694. Up next we have another one of our rookies with Mercedes X50 in that Porsche 911, a 1:21.707. In P11 we have Kirk in that Viper, a 1:21.769. That's a very good time for that car. We'll see how he gets on in the feature race though. And our Season 3 champion in PE12, KD Lakai, won 21.821 on those medium tyres also. And in P13 we have our very own The Dark Lord, setting a qualifying time of 1 minute 30.470 on the hard tyres. So a little bit of tactical play possibly coming in there for the sprint race, but we know it definitely worked out well with him for that sprint race victory. But anywho, Sarah, that takes us up to the feature race. That grid looks entertaining, and I have to say, looking forward to the race on this one. Sophia setting that time on the medium tyres for pole position, that was extraordinary. But anyone you're going to be keeping an eye on in particular for this race?
Oh, well, I'm intrigued about, how fast that time was by Sophia, so we'll be keeping an eye out on her, see if she can keep up that pace. But, I don't know, I'm a little bit, gonna keep my eye on the Dark Lord, because obviously setting a time on the hards, he'll be able to, extend that first stint just a little bit longer than the cars in front of him. So maybe, master at work, maybe he's thought out of his strategy way ahead of the feature race, and he knows what he's doing. But apart from that, I'm gonna keep my eye on Oliver, Charlie, see how they get on, especially that Alpha 4C. It's not a car that we see very often, so I'm excited to see how it kind of gets on around this track.
Yeah, exactly the same, and I can only back up what you said about the Dark Lord there. It sounds like he's worked out a strategy, a counter strategy. Most people are going for the softs or the mediums, and he's thinking 300 IQ in the future potentially. So it's going to be interesting. But yes, like yourself, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the rookies. Good luck to them all out there in their first F1 RST feature race. Now let's get on to the race itself, Sarah.
Yeah, let's do it. Right, so it's lights out nearly, and away we go. We've got Sophia. All coaches seemed to a little bit of a it didn't start quite well there, which obviously a few bumped into him. But I was going to say before I noticed that Sophia was on pole, but she's already been overtaken by Koulias. Koulias on the soft set of tyres, so he's got a good getaway in that NSX with Sophia just behind and Midnight. But already we've seen everyone be bunched up into turn 1, and Dark Lord starting on the hard tyres, already looking for a move. But obviously talking about tyre strategies, being on the hards means that Dark Lord can go a lot longer into the race compared to the mediums and softs, so I'm excited to see what he gets up to from the back of the grid. Mac, anything you're spotting so far into the race?
Yeah, I mean, very clean first lap so far. That turn 1, especially with that standing start, is not the easiest to navigate with nearly 13 drivers. So very well done from everybody there. There's just a small bit of contact, I believe, with Sophia and Sophie, but everyone made it out alive. Now there is damage, I believe, to Kirk, if I'm not mistaken, or who somewhere picked it up somewhere on that lap. As you mentioned, yeah, we got Dark Lord on the hard tyres. So that will enable him to go a lot longer into the race, and is of course going to be on an alternate strategy. So we'll see where that takes him. Takes him on the journey. As you see someone get onto the grass there, I believe that was one of the 4 GTs, and there's even more people getting onto the grass there. I think it was like 3 or 4 people taking a trip onto the grass, kicking up a lot of dirt. As you see Koulias and Sophia having a fight here up at the front, the NSX versus the Audi. Let me just mention, by the way, Audi R8. I think it's my first time seeing it in this season. Or in this in F1 RST, so very cool choice there from Sophia. And of course, Honda NSX is a nice choice as well. We don't see them often in F1 RST. So 2 unique cars up in the top 2. Very cool to see.
Yeah, maybe we've been missing out in previous seasons with not picking those cars, or maybe the recent update really kind of put them in people's choices. Like you say, it's not been people's choice so far, but I believe we've got Hassler in the blue lobby, also in the Audi R8. So obviously Sophia and Hassler have been spotted something in that Audi R8. But just going further back, we've got KD Lakai in P9 challenging Mercedes in that Porsche for P8. But yeah, I was wondering what the guys were doing. I don't know if they were doing a Danny Rick tactic, going on the grass, kicking up a little bit of dirt to distract their drivers behind them. But yeah, obviously on to lap number 2, nearly on to lap number 3. We've already got Sophia overtaking Koulias back on into first position, But Midnight already looking for a move on Koulios going into turn 1 of lap 3 here.
Yeah, definitely. The grass definitely being kicked up in that final corner. It's not the easiest to navigate. It sometimes it's flat. I think in GR3s most of the time it is flat. But if you get even a bit too far from the apex, it can definitely mess up your line and cause you to go a bit wide. And we see Midnight, of course, as mentioned, getting very close to the back of Koulios into turn 1. One thing I'll mention, just as a random fact, is that in GT Sport, compared to GT7, this track was, of course, changed a small, but we got some extra bollards on the GP layout of the track. And then on all versions of the track, pretty much, on that final corner, there's a weird sausage curb, because there was new layouts of the track added in GT7, and that sausage curb, if the drivers do go a bit too wide on the final corner, they're not going to have a nice time, let's just say. It could get a bit airborne, so don't go out of that curb. Don't ever go wide in that corner. If you're going wide, get as close to the barrier as you can, because you'll avoid the sausage curve then. But yeah, just something to point out, because I saw Koulios got very close to it, and I was getting worried that he'd end up hitting it. And he was all the right-hand side of the car would go up in the air. We got more glass being kicked up there from Sophie, as it looks like Pedro has gotten by. Midnight there, someone's nearly spinning, and it's Koulios spinning around backwards into the pit lane divider.
He must have heard you talking about that sausage curve, because I think he literally only just clipped it and it unsettled the car enough for him to spin, and obviously facing towards the oncoming traffic, and I think the pit wall or the tyre wall might have saved him a little bit there. But yeah, didn't quite catch flight, but obviously did unsettle that NSX. But yeah, we might see a few cars turn into airplanes during this race and catch a little bit of airtime. But talking about airtime, we've got Charlie trying his best to get past Sophie in that Ferrari 458, and with the top speed of that Ford GT, he managed it with quite a lot of ease there.
Because of that whole kerfuffle now in the final corner, Midnight has managed to get past Pedro. A few of the drivers had to slow up there. It was lucky, actually, Koulios, he just about got avoided by all the drivers, considering he was kind of out of control after hitting that top curb, lifted the rear of the car up, made it spin back onto the track. So Midnight reclaims that position from Pedro. So it's now Sophia out in the lead with Midnight and Pedro dueling it out for the second and third positions, and OS Racing lurking there in the background. I think OS having a good race so far, just lurking in the back in P4. I think definitely if Pedro and Midnight keep fighting as it is, can be getting up into them podium positions. And even on the straight, you can see catching in that slipstream, not close enough to make a move into turn 1, but that is definitely going to be encouraging for the driver in the 4C.
Yeah, and like we alluded to in the sprint race as well, that 4C, it's small, but it's definitely mighty. It's one definitely to look out for, during this race. And talking about people to look out for, we've got KD the Kai in P9. I think you can see, obviously, there's quite a few cars in front of him at the minute, but we know how KD the Kai, he's got his own way of, navigating through the grid, and I think he's biding his time at the moment. Obviously qualifying, I think it was penultimate, so obviously he's got a little bit of a challenge on his hands, as Jabril dips the tyre into the dirt, which does let KD the Kai through into P8. But yeah, all these cars from, saying that, all the way from Midnight to KD the Kai are very, very close to each other. Pedro, trying his best to keep on the back of Midnight here and try and eye up that second place. But Oliver, obviously, just a little bit further behind, waiting to see what these two get up to, and maybe he can claim 2 positions straight away.
You see a bit of dirt there being kicked up by the Audi R8. Sophia doing very well up here now in the lead after claiming that first position from that battle that she had with Koulios at the start of the race. Koulios, of course, is back out of the pits, got rear end damage from the crashing into the pit lane divider, but is back out there now, circulating the track at the back of the field. And you see now we've got a nice, lovely, chill field, we'd like to say. We are 5 laps into this race. We got a nice, calm race on our hand for now, until until someone makes another mistake. But one thing I'd like to mention, of course, focus on a track like this, very important. I'd like to say it's a shorter track than most, because of course the GP layout will be a lot longer. about a 1 minute 22 lap time most drivers are looking at. You see, Pedro did make some mistake there, allowing OS Racing to catch back up. But it does mean they're going to be going around this track 49 times. So they got to keep their focus around all the corners 49 times. And of course, with the track being so punishing with the curves and all the grass like this, it can be a bit tough for the drivers during this 49 lap race to just keep that car within the limits. And we see OS Racing now just right on the gearbox there before they break for the final corner of Pedro. He's going to be able to make a move here into turn 1. How's Pedro going to defend? He's going to go to the inside, OS Racing, and he's going to maybe try get later on the brakes. And he is, of course, cutting that curve right there, like most drivers have been doing all day to get a bit of an upper hand, but it just looks like not enough acceleration. Pedro managed to cover off that outside line, as now Charlie has an opportunity to gain a position, and they're going to be side by side, OS Racing and Charlie, into the S's. And Charlie is going to have the inside line for this corner, but looks like OS Racing just managing to get a better acceleration. Might have been in the slipstream of Pedro, which might have helped to get past and keep that position of P4. But it just shows now, as soon as one person moves out to make a move, all the other drivers are starting to catch up and trying to get their own positions. So it's going to be interesting. It's like a game of cat and mouse, you know, they're trying to make a move, and then the person behind is like, oh, I want an opportunity, I want a position.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and obviously it just goes to show you, well, it's definitely, you know, a pat on the back for the drivers that are that close to each other, that if one, even at the front, makes a mistake, or, you know, you could go right to the back of the grid, like obviously we saw what happened with Koulias. He was pretty much, you know, up there with Sophia, dropped it on that final corner, and it brought him to the back of the grid, so it just shows how easily done. And talking about catching flight, I just witnessed Charlie going over that sausage curve on the last corner. And I've got to say, the car, I think all 4 tyres did leave the ground there, but it didn't look like it unsettled the car too much, but that does lose him a little bit of time to this little pack behind him in Sophie, Mercedes and Katie the Kai. So he'll be put under a little bit more pressure now.
Yeah, definitely. You see the drivers going through this. I think this track definitely proving its worth on the calendar. We've seen some brilliant racing so far today, and we're going to see much more to come as OS Racing now on the back of Pedro again. He's going to take the inside line. Yes, he is. That's a good move down the inside, but Pedro, of course, is going to get that outside line to get the better exit, and he's just not able to stick that move on Pedro for now. So might have to wait again into turn 1. It seems turn 1 is the best move for OS Racing. We of course saw him make a move into turn 1 on Coach earlier in the sprint race. Brilliant move. Managed to catch Coach off guard, who had been defending from everybody all race on that inside line. And we see Pedro's actually catching him to Midnight here now. It looks like Midnight might be struggling with tires. You can see that front left getting a bit worrying. Of course, on the soft tires, one of 3 drivers to start on the soft tires for this race. Pedro now in the slipstream of Midnight. Will he be able to make a move now into turn 1? Looks like it might be a bit too far back. It will be for now.
Yeah, and obviously Pedro in that rear-wheel drive BMW, he will have to kind of bide his time when he puts that acceleration down to not, you know, lose the back end. So obviously Pedro will try again in the next couple of corners as he looks to go side by side with Midnight here. Tucks in just behind him though, although he does get a lot of acceleration coming out of that corner here, and the two might be going side by side. Oh no, he makes that move done nice and early. I'm not sure if that was a mistake by Midnight there, because he's also losing a position to Oliver and potentially Charlie as well.
Yeah, I think those tires definitely starting to show their age as Midnight is just running out of grip here. I think the S's are definitely taxing on the tires. There's a few of those sharp corners dotted around the track, right-handers that stress that front left a lot. And you can see it there on Midnight's tires, of course, one of the soft starters. And now losing more positions. You can see Charlie, as you mentioned, now taking a movement. Looks like Mercedes is going to take that opportunity as well in the Porsche, and Kai in the Nissan behind. Kai getting all sorts of sideways, managing to keep the car straight as Mercedes is going to try it on the outside here, which might be a bit risky considering Midnight isn't doing the best on tires. And yes, Midnight is going to be going to the pit lane. Kai following him until that pit lane divider, and of course staying out, just trying to get that inside line on Mercedes, and it is going to take that inside line, but it's going to be the outside from the next corner. and he has made that move before that next corner. It is important to do that, of course, on that inside line for turn 1. It has been the outside line for turn 2. So if you don't manage to get ahead and get your rear bumper ahead of the front bumper of the driver overtaking, it makes it very hard to keep that move into turn 2. As we see some dirt being kicked up by Mercedes, as Jabril now fighting with him, heading down the straight.
Yeah, and it just obviously going back to Midnight pitting there. Oh, we've had a little bit of an incident between Mercedes and Sophie there. I wasn't on board when it happened, but it looks like the two maybe contact with each other, which obviously put them in the sand, but they've both got going again. And looks to be no damage, I don't think. So lucky for those two not to get damage. But I'm sure they'll get back up into this little mid-pack battle right here. We've got, like you say, Katie Kai trying to climb his way up onto the podium. We all know that it's his favourite place to be, considering the amount of podiums he got last season in Season 3. But obviously, we've already seen some people starting on the softs already having to make their first pit stop, and it just reiterates, how high the tyre wear is around this track, and it's going to be hurting quite a few people's race, as we see Charlie dipping a couple wheels into the grass there. He remains on the inside line. Katie the car on the outside manages to get that move done before the corner, before that sausage curb, so I'm sure Katie the car will be happy about that move. But obviously just scrolling through the rest of the grid, we've got Jabril just tucked up behind his fellow 4GT in Charlie, possibly looking for a move here. It's here on the Apex. It's a game of who breaks later. It's like you said earlier, kind of a game of cat and mouse. Who's more braver to break a bit later? They both obviously broke around about the same time there, and Jabril waiting a few more corners to make that move. But what do you think of the race so far? Anyone kind of surprising you as yet, or is it too early to call?
I mean, I definitely think OS Racing definitely putting on a show for everybody here today. Of course, coming here into round 1 with the 4C, interesting choice, but it seems that choice is definitely paying off. Looking good on fuel, looking good on tires, and looking quick, most importantly, on the track. Currently tailing Pedro, and I reckon might be a matter of time before he manages to get ahead of Pedro. He's been fighting all day. It could be just one mistake away for Pedro to get that P2. And I think just touching as well on the incident between Sophie and Mercedes just looked like it was two drivers fighting for the same piece of track and both going the same way, and just made collision into the braking zone and both going off in the gravel, unfortunately. Just looked more like a racing incident. Both of them were just going for the same piece of track. No one really at fault. But we look further down the grid now. We see Coach circulating P12 and Kudos P13, of course, having their individual troubles towards the start of the race. We see now up in front Sophia in P1 setting purple lap times currently.
Oh, a little bit of an off-track excursion there by Sophia, but she's got a lot of time that she can make those off-track excursions to this battle between obviously Pedro and Oliver, who's heating up a little bit, but Pedro manages to keep it on the track in front of Oliver and Katie the Kai, looking a bit sideways there for the second time. But I was going obviously scrolling through as well, like you mentioned, Koulios towards the back and Kirk in the Dodge. I'm not sure if it was Kirk was the one that maybe potentially got caught up with Coach. Obviously, I'm not sure what happened on the grid there, but Coach had a very late getaway, and maybe Kirk was the driver behind that accidentally, crashed into him. Hence why obviously Kirk is a lot further down than probably what he wants to be. But hopefully, obviously we're at 13 laps into the race. Hopefully Kirk, will be able to kind of work his way back through the pack. He's not too far away from Midnight here, so he's probably putting his foot all the way down to the floor just to get anywhere near Midnight and still a little bit of that slipstream.
Yeah, definitely. Always, looks like, as I said, one mistake away. What did I say? Pedro touches the gravel. OS Racing now around the outside will be the inside for this corner. Will the 4C manage to get ahead of the M6? They're side by side as they head into this right-hander, but Pedro might just have the upper hand here as he has that outside line, but Pedro's gone wide. He's touched the grass and got all sorts of sideways, and has 2 positions lost now. As OS racing up in a second, and Kai hunting Oliver down for that P2 position. Rare mistake from Pedro, but it is a costly one.
Yeah, very costly. Obviously, we've got the 2 4GTs just behind him as well, who will be eyeing up for a couple of positions if Pedro makes another mistake here. But, you know, a lot of the drivers do 14 laps in, Pedro on the mediums, they are going to start to, you know, lose grip and lose a little bit of traction, and it's very difficult in that BMW for traction anyway, as we see Oliver looking a little bit sideways there, which does lose him a little bit of time to KD the Kai getting very close to his rear bumper, potentially looking for a move, going alongside Oliver here. Maybe it's going to be a cat and mouse game again, who's going to brake later, KD the Kai or Oliver in that 4th seat. We shall see. It looks like a very level playing field. Oliver going for that slightly higher line, going on to the outside, well, the inside and then the outside of this corner here. I've got to say, it's surprising to see how fast that little 4C is. Maybe we're missing a trick here. Maybe we should have all gone for that Alpha 4C. It seems very economical on the fuel, but also very fast. As I say that though, KD the Kai going back into the inside line, making the move back up to P2. But I think this is a battle we're going to see brew for the the duration of the race. But obviously Pedro has lost some position to Charlie as well in the last lap. So Pedro in the last lap losing 3 positions overall.
Yeah, it looks like same corner. Pedro making another mistake, same as the last lap, that made him concede the position that was racing. As Charlie's entering the pits now in the 4GT. But yeah, no, it looks like Pedro made the same mistake on that corner. And it's just heads wide onto the grass, and the grass, of course, causes another snap of oversteer. So in P4 right now because of Charlie pitting, and we'll have to see if he can fend off Jibril and Dark Lord, as it does look like that M4 is starting to struggle on those tyres currently. Looking up towards the front, OS Racing, as mentioned, has been overtaken by Kai. Put up a good fight, even on that outside line, was able to stay alongside until the left-right-hander. So interesting stuff to show the pace of that Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, and obviously Silent Assassin in the Dark Lord as well. He's managed to go from basically last to P6 within 15 laps. Obviously a little bit of help from the people at the back pitting and repairing some damage or changing their tyres. But obviously he can go a lot longer into this race than some of the others. So I'm sure he'll be very happy where he's sitting currently. And obviously hopefully he'll be able to extend his stint just that a little bit. So it kind of puts him up a little bit towards Sophia. As we see, Pedro picking up a half-second penalty there, which obviously won't cost it. Well, it will cost him quite a lot, as Jibril is not too far away. So maybe another position loss for Pedro in the next coming lap.
And now we see as we see Mercedes entering the pits off of those medium tires. I believe we'll be seeing a lot of drivers come in the next few laps. You get off of those mediums and bolt on some fresh new tires. We'll be curious to see what Mercedes will go on to, of course, as they'll be wanting to extend the stint as long as they can. Of course, there's fueling up now. The Porsche driver will be dropping down the order, but this is the stage of the race now where we're going to get a bit less action on track, because the drivers will be spread out after their pit stops. It looks like Jibril actually has gotten ahead of Pedro now as well because of that penalty, served that penalty. But Dark Lord not managing to get by, so Jibril just squeezing through at that point. We see Pedro now entering this corner that he's had that mistake 2 laps in a row, which is the snap of oversteer. Manages to get it right this time, which is good stuff because it wants to catch up to the back of Jibril and get that position back, as Jibril kicking up some dirt there. That may be enticing Pedro for that P4. See if anybody pits this lap. But oh yeah, Jibril goes wide again there, just avoiding the curb, I think. Manages to keep the position, which is surprising. But Pedro will be looking down the inside now.
Yeah, like you say with Pedro, obviously his tyre wear is getting to that point where it's going to become a little bit sketchy within the next few laps. As I said, that a few wheels into the grass, which obviously doesn't help on that battle with Jabril, and obviously Dark Lord right behind looking for a move now as well. But I fear obviously Pedro will have to come into the pit shortly, just for for a bit more traction as Dark Lord goes into the inside line, brakes a little bit later, gets that move done before the apex, and yeah, unfortunately Pedro into P6. But I've got to say, Jabril's doing well so far. It's great to have Jabril back on the track. He's quite famous in the Nighthawk Racing Championship for that last lap battle around, I believe it was Autopolis with Swizzy. We were all kind of debating who was going to win, and obviously it came right down to the wire, so it's good to see Jabril back and in the 4GT. A difficult car, a very gas-guzzling car that we've seen in previous seasons, but in P4 seems to be doing quite well in it so far. Apart from that, Charlie, also in the other 4GT, is on the back of Midnight after Midnight's first pit stop. As we see Sophia also coming into the pits, which does promote Katie Dekai into net leader. But I believe Katie Dekai hasn't come into pit yet. I may be mistaken, but I'm sure Katie Dekai will be enjoying a little bit of clean air here.
Yeah, Kai is not pitted yet, and looks like just looking up, he definitely has a lot better tires than Kai right now, but OS Racing with less fuel, so maybe just the fuel efficiency not playing into his hands for this stint. As Dark Lord on those hard tires, look, let me just say, in previous seasons that I would have raced, I would like to call myself the hard tire merchant, and it never worked out ever, because I like the hard tires in GT Sport, but they're horrible in GT7. But it looks like now, with this new season, the hard tires are looking like more of a favorable tire to be on. And could it be just this race? Potentially, but I have a feeling it may be a trend going forward for those hard tires to be powerful. And we're seeing Dark Lord Harrison with a yellow flag for some reason. It looks like Kirk has spun round, unfortunately, in that Viper. Front end damage, that is not good for Kirk, the Viper driver, of course. The only one in this lobby right now. That's very unfortunate, as we see Pedro entering the pits now, as well as OS Racing.
Yeah, very unfortunate there for Kirk. He's coming in to repair that damage pretty much straight away. But a very challenging car, a very unforgiving car as well, that Viper. And it does go through his tyre and fuel just that a little bit more compared to the other cars. It's, gas-guzzling American car, what would you expect? But hopefully a new set of rubber will be just what Kirk needs. Obviously a little bit more traction in that car as well. But we have Mercedes just coming out just behind Coach. Coach obviously settling back into the race after that start, which he didn't see him, off the grid straight away. But Pedro and Oliver still in the pits at the minute. Interesting to see who will come out first, and I believe obviously it'll be a full fill up, and a new set of rubber. But Kirk just comes out just behind Mercedes and Coach, with Pedro and Oliver basically coming out at the same time, so reigniting that battle as soon as they come out of the pits.
Yeah, definitely. And now Jabril up into P2 and Dark Lord in P3. We'll see if Dark Lord is able to, is he going to gain or lose time as everyone comes to the pits? Of course, he's got all their tires. We'd expect him to lose time. But let's see what he can do with this strategy, of course. It is the alternative. He's going to have the slower tires right now, but he's going to have the faster ones towards the end of the race. Considering his pace right now, you can definitely see Dark Lord being a contender for that podium position. We got Kai and Jabril now into the pits onto new sets of tires and getting fuel. We now see Sophie getting P2 with some very old looking medium tires, running out of fuel very soon, so we'll probably be coming to pit this or next lap, depending on how far that will get him. And Sophia looks like she's come out on not full fuel, which is interesting. Now we do see that strategy, because having a car with full fuel that doesn't need it can be slower sometimes, so people will just try to put as much as they need in, which is usually not full. So of course, just a bit of strategy there with the fuel amount. Of course, lighter car, happier life.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of drivers will be, trying to be as fast as they can. I know for one thing that I'm terrible when it comes to fuel. I either put too much in or too little. You'll see what happened in the blue lobby in the future race end, but I won't spoil anything for anyone if they haven't watched it already. So I know, fuel around here can be quite tight. And like you say, some drivers, just put in the necessary amount just to get them to their next stop. And obviously, talking about next stops, we've had Kudos come in. He has been lapped by Midnight and Charlie at this point, but he's not too far behind. And I'm sure, obviously, the slipstream will allow Kudos to save a little bit of fuel, which obviously will help him maybe potentially come back on the lead lap when these guys come into pit. And it promotes Midnight and Charlie into P2 and P3 as we see the Dark Lord and Sophie coming into the pits. And it looks like Katie the Kai is also beating them to that lap, the turn one, sorry, as I saw that Louis has just left the pits now. So it didn't really cost him that much time, extending that stint by one more lap, choosing not to pit when the others pitted a lap before has really helped him not lose too much time towards the rest of the grid.
We see Charlie overtaking Midnight there on the straight. Now heading into this right-hander, of course, Midnight on those older medium tires, started on the soft, pitted earlier. And Charlie just running, both of them running the same amount of fuel actually. With that 4 GT going to be pulling off into the distance soon enough, unless Midnight can keep on the back of the 4 GT driver. But on those older tires, it may not be that possible. We see Kai now behind, just about 2 corners behind on new soft tires. It'll be interesting to see what they can do on those softs. Or started on the mediums, Kai did, so it will be nice to have a bit more grip in the car.
Yeah, going for an interesting strategy there. Obviously going for the faster tyre in this kind of medium stint. Maybe potentially trying to make up for lost ground, or maybe just trying to kind of put himself in a good position for the final stint. Obviously, potentially maybe going back onto the mediums or the hards, we shall see. But obviously, the faster he can be now will help him towards the end of the race. And talking about that, we've got Jabril on the back of Coach here, potentially eyeing up a move on to lap number 22. Just but in front of them we have Oliver, and he's having quite an outstanding race at the minute. And Koulios has unlapped himself to Midnight there on that lap. Obviously Koulios a lap down, so he'll have to kind of put his foot down to the floor, try and get away from Midnight as soon as he can, to try not to hold Midnight up, as just in front of Midnight we obviously have Charlie in P2, and I'm sure Charlie will be enjoying a little bit of clean air here with that gas guzzling car. But yeah, Koulios obviously unlapping himself. Can he get himself back up to P11? We shall see. But just behind we have Jabril has overtaken Coach in that last couple of corners, and looks like he's not giving up just yet. So Coach fighting for that P8 with Jabril, and not too far behind we have Pedro looking to try and make up a few positions here after he obviously before he pitted he had a few troubling laps, so making up a few positions hopefully. But we've lost a driver. We've gone down to 12 runners, and I believe it is Kirk in the Viper that we have lost.
Oh dear, yeah, no, we saw that spin earlier in the race, so just not having the best times in that Viper. Of course, saw a pretty okay sprint race from him, but unfortunately just the feature race not working out in his favour. Of course, retiring from the race. Never like to see a retirement. Of course, we are only halfway through the race. Still a good amount to go. Many more chances to make up positions or gain time.
So, interesting one here. Midnight obviously getting back past Koulios here. Obviously Koulios would have been shown the blue flags for the majority of that lap, being ahead of Midnight, but obviously Koulios not being able to get in front and stay in front of Midnight. But he looks to be challenging Midnight here. Obviously he's a lap down, Midnight in P3, Koulios on the inside line here. This is not what Midnight will probably be wanting to fight. Obviously, he wants to, play out his strategy. So a bit of an interesting call here from Koulios, but maybe he's just missing that racing action and wants to race the car in front of him.
Yeah, well, we see, especially at tracks like this with good straights. I mean, we've got 2 straights on this track, and of course the nice S section that get the cars up to speed. And
He's going for it again. Sorry to interrupt you there, Mac.
Yeah, side by side now, heading into this right-hander. Koulios gonna have the inside line, so he's gonna get ahead. It seems Midnight doesn't have the grip in the corners because of those tires, but then Koulios has
He's gonna lose in time.
Yeah, he is gonna lose time, but it seems gonna be a perpetual loop because Koulios is fast in the corners, but not fast in the straights because Midnight's getting the slipstream, and Midnight's catching back up. And then when Midnight gets past, Koulios is fast in the corners and fast in the straight because he got the slipstream. So it's a cause of the track and also just the current situation with the tires and cars. Looks like he's managed to stay out a good bit by now. Looks like there's a bit of a gap open, but I'm not sure how long it's going to last. Looks like he seems to have a straight line speeding. Kai is catching.
Yeah, and obviously Midnight, I don't think Midnight will be liking the situation at the minute. Obviously that lost him an immense amount of time to KD the Kai here. KD the Kai obviously benefiting from this situation here. He's managed to get back on, well, nearly to the rear bumper of Midnight. But I'm sure Midnight doesn't really want to engage in a battle with Koulios. Obviously Koulios being a lap down. And Koulios will be shown, and the marshals are showing a blue flag, so he will have to kind of let these two by now. But is he going to move out of the way? Midnight obviously going for that move here. Gets back in front of Koulios here. Like I said, a difficult one, but obviously under blue flag conditions, or blue flag rules, Koulios can fight for a position, but he's got to put his foot down and try and get away from these drivers as soon as he can, as KD the Kai looks to make a move on Koulios straight away. So the two have been released, and they're back fighting here in KD the Kai and Midnight. But Midnight obviously would have lost a little bit of downforce and a little bit of speed behind Koulios. But like you say, obviously, if Koulios can get back onto that lead lap, it looks like the pace is there.
You see Koulios darting off the side there, getting, I'd say, a bit of the dirty air from Kai once he pulled back in front, and heading off the track, missing the curb. Took my advice anyways to not hit the curb. Managed to slow himself down in time to not hit that sausage curb. But yeah, interesting situation there. Not often that you see that, but of course, when you do 4 seasons, you're going to get weird situations that happen really once in a million years that just happen for some reason on the day, and that's one of them. That's one of the situations that you get once every maybe 50 races, and it's really weird when it happens. But yeah, so looks like that situation was sorted. But Midnight now probably feeling a bit uncomfortable. Thought Kai wouldn't be that close to him after these laps, but it happened that way. Koulios was there, and wonder if Kai gave Koulios a Christmas card or something, because it seems Koulios
maybe slipped him a tenner and be like, hold up Midnight for a little bit there for me, mate. But obviously, talking about holding up as well, we've got Dark Lord trying to make a move on Koulios as well, and not able to on that few corners there. Koulios definitely not making it easy for these top runners here to get past him. But yes, obviously Midnight and KD the Kai onto lap number 27 now. Will Midnight outbrake KD the Kai, or will KD the Kai outbrake Midnight? KD the Kai onto the inside line, getting that outside line. Obviously, Midnight lost a little bit of speed there. I thought maybe the two would go side by side into turn 2 there, but they think better of it. But just behind them, they will be loving this, maybe. Dark Lord is getting held up by Koulios just that a little bit. So obviously the two out in front, KD the Kai and Midnight, he's released. Koulios has a little bit of a whoopsie moment there as Mercedes comes through. Oh, very close, but missing the side of Koulios' car there, and Koulios getting going again as well.
It was a pretty interesting crash. I haven't seen a crash in the S's ever. Well, actually, no, I tell a lie. I've seen one. But yeah, interesting crash there. Looks like maybe just picking up the dirt. See, you go wide, and if you get a bit caught up on the curb, especially in a car with the NSX. Now, I don't know really too much on how the NSX handles exactly, but I do know sometimes over the bumps, it mightn't be the nicest car to be tolerating with. And maybe just getting a bit caught up on the bumps in the S's because it's been round. And now Kai's been released after getting past Midnight, and Dark Lord will be trying to catch up to Midnight as well, considering he's got those new tires. Went off of those hards and onto those mediums, of course, on that little alternate strategy. See if it pays off the end of the race, which we won't really know until the closing stages how well it works. As we see Pilos now coming to the pits. I think he got damaged from that crash, so probably coming in to repair the damage. And yeah, there you go. Right damage to the car. Obviously, going to the barrier backwards, not ideal for his race.
No, definitely not ideal at all. But like I say, obviously to repair it as soon as he can, that'll be the best option for him to get back. Obviously, that might bring him another lap down. But hopefully, I mean, potentially towards the end of the race, you know, he could put a set softs on, challenge for that fastest lap. But talking about challenging, we have Pedro on the back of Oliver. Obviously, these three here in Jabril, Oliver, and Pedro have got very different strategies going on, but it's kind of brought back to similar to the positions they were in before they pitted. And obviously, this is where we'll kind of see the second stint. As I say that, Charlie into the pits in that 4GT. Pedro on the inside line, a very brave move there. Obviously, it's very hard to run wide there, but keeps it nice and narrow and gets that move done on Oliver.
Charlie heading in pits now. Was in P2 before that pit stop. Heading off of those medium tires. Let's Kai get up into P2. Sophie, of course, still in P1. Drilling out the front, haven't mentioned her a lot this race. Leading quite a nice race for herself up in the front there in that Audi R8. Midnight's tire is getting to a pretty critical situation now. If he has any grip, it would be a miracle, I'd say. So, yeah, it looks like those tires are pretty grim, and Dark Lord is catching up to him. And I think Midnight will probably be pulling into the pits this lap, low on fuel. Probably might make it around for one more lap, not sure. The Mclaren seems to be good on the fuel efficiency, so that might be enough for another lap. I'd say not, but I'd say this lap will be in to get off those tires. And wonder now how much that hold up with the back marker situation would have cost Midnight. And we'll have to see at the end of the race if he would have done any better with it, or would have done any better with his strategies. We see Kai getting a 0.5-second penalty for exceeding track limits. And yes, Midnight coming to the pits now in that McLaren 650S.
Yeah, obviously 20 laps on those medium tyres. Quite a good stint by Midnight. But obviously he did lose a little bit of time to Koulios there. And like you say, we shall see how much time he got held up by at the end of the race. But hopefully, obviously, I assume he's going to pit for mediums again. Try and go another 20 laps to the end. Again, it's going to be stretching it, but I'm sure if Midnight's pulled it off this one, he can do. But it seems to have got a bit dark around the track, a little bit kind of misty and a little bit murky. A few cars' headlights have turned on. But yeah, racing in the sunset now. Quite a nice view of the mountains. But Midnight will probably be putting a full fuel tank in admiring the view at the minute. And he'll come out in nice clean air, which I'm sure will benefit him. But like you say about Sophia, she's kind of had a very commanding lead here. Not got in much traffic, just from the get-go. Just putting her foot down and not looking back.
Yeah, definitely is. Yeah, as you mentioned, looking a bit darker. Oh, Dark Lord getting 2 wheels up there, I think, because of that curb gone a bit wide. So, the headlights just turn on there on Dark Lord's car, so we can see the two lovely eyes of the Supra. Heading, look at that beautiful shot. Look at the mountains there. It's a bit foggy actually. Can't really see them that well. But Kai now heads into the pit lane off those soft tires with Mercedes following behind in that Porsche to get off at the mediums as well. Kai will be refueling, and I think he might just come out ahead of Midnight. Kai will, depending on how much fuel he puts in. Looks like filling it up quite a bit. I'd say, yeah, you might need a good bit of fuel to make it to the end of the race. As of now, yeah, Midnight's just rounding the final corner right now. So coming down the straight, Kai exits the pits, and yeah, good bit ahead of Midnight, about 6-7 seconds, I'd say. As Mercedes exits the pits now as well, just behind Midnight. So that'll be interesting to see. Of course, Midnight is just on those 1 or 2 lap older tires. So will Mercedes be able to catch on pure pace?
Yeah, maybe a battle brewing between those two in the next few laps. Obviously, the Dark Lord into P2. That's a very nice present for him. Obviously, he pitted a lot later than the others, so he can, looking at that fuel meter, he can probably go a couple more laps and extend that stint a little bit more and put himself in a good position to be on the faster tyre at the end. But I don't know about you. Obviously, going back to Oliver, who it just looks like he's engaging in a little bit of a battle between Sophie. Sophie getting a little bit further in front into turn 1. Brakes a lot later. That was very brave break in there by Sophie. I'm surprised she did. Saying that, Oliver makes a little bit of a trip into the grass there. Maybe got caught out by Sophia's late break in there, because I know I did. But talking about Charlie and Oliver, obviously they are technically our F1 RST rookies. In no way, shape or form is that to do with their skill level. In what we mean by that is they're very new to the league championship. But I've got to say they're doing a remarkable job so far. What do you think? Obviously, this is their first race with us with Nighthawk Racing, and pretty good showing from those two so far.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Oliver has definitely proved that the 4C reminded me the 4C was even a car in this game, and it's definitely showing me how mistaken I was to forget it was a car, because wow, the performance we've seen of him in that car has been excellent today. Absolutely impeccable. We've seen some really good fights, and with Charlie as well, of course, in the 4GT with his 4GT teammate Jabril, showing a really strong showing today, getting up to a peak position of P2 in this current race, and having battles all over the track. Of course, was involved in that group of cars in the sprint race that we saw, all fighting for position and putting up a really good scrap with some of the drivers. He's been kind of looking, he's been kind of doing his own thing. He's been getting up those positions when it's been needed. So a really good performance from the two newbies today in their first race here in F1 RST.
Yeah, and I believe that the two are very good friends. Obviously, some being friends off track. Hopefully, they're just as good friends on track. But I know sometimes it doesn't really matter about your friendship on track. You just want to get in front and be the highest position possible. But yeah, like you say, obviously the Alpha and the 4C. The 4C, sorry, and the 4GT. Got my tongue twisted there. Two cars that were kind of, I don't know, not really chosen last season. Not because obviously they're not good cars, but obviously a lot of people choosing to go for like the Mercedes, the McLaren. But it's good to see the two newbies, going for something different, hitting the ground running, and doing a really good job so far and racing nice and clean and respectful. As we saw, obviously Charlie getting past Oliver in the final few corners here, but it looks like we're getting to that part of the race again where everyone's coming in or have come in for their final pit stops, and it seems that everyone's quite spaced out on the track at the moment. But like you say, it's hard to be spaced out on a tight track. But Mercedes is getting closer to midnight, so I'll be keeping an eye on this battle here, which I'm assuming will start brewing within the next lap or so, as obviously midnight on slightly older tyres than Mercedes.
We'll have to say we're now in the fourth season, and I think I'd be correct in saying I think Midnight's the only person in this race right now who has had the same car for all the races he's raced in this current race. So of course, he's a loyal man. He's a loyal man to the McLaren cause, and I'm the exact same. So respect Midnight. But yeah, of course, Midnight in the McLaren. We've got Mercedes in, not the Mercedes, in the Porsche. But yeah, we're gonna have a good battle on our hands here for P9.
I completely forgot that Mercedes is also new to Night Hot Racing. You know, during this race, he's just had a really nice, you know, clean and it's been filled with battles so far. I completely forgot that he's also a newbie to Night Hot Racing as well. But again, he's hit the ground running. You know, he's already eyeing up a battle with Midnight, one of the co-founders. So I don't know if it's brave or or something that he'll maybe, you know, be a bit careful with. But yeah, it's good to see obviously all of the newbies, including Mercedes as well, having fun in their first race with us. And hopefully the first of many. Yeah, fingers crossed. But yeah, Midnight looks to be, you know, quite comfortably in front of Mercedes at the moment. And just having a quick scan through the field as well. Obviously, looks like everyone's kind of settling in for their final stint. But I've got to say, you know, Sophia, pretty much start to finish, has been on it the whole time as she comes into the pits. Probably maybe for her last stint. I'm not sure how the Audi R8 is on fuel and tyres. I don't know if you have any experience with that, but Dark Lord also into the pits, so it's going to be tight between these two here.
I can tell you from experience, I don't like the R8. No. Like I've driven it, and it's no, I don't like it. Look, let me just say, when the game first launched, the Deep Forest circuit experience traumatized me because it was in the URA and it was horrible and I hated it. So that's my input on it. But yeah, no, of course you're mentioning earlier Mercedes, of course, is another new driver for season 4, and to be honest, it's strange to me because I've raced with Mercedes on track in other leagues, and of course been a commentator of other races with him, and it just, you know, you just see his name and you're like, oh, it's Mercedes. He's just, you know, he's just Mercedes, man. He's in here. So yeah, no, it's interesting. Good to see Mercedes racing in the F1 RFT League. And yeah, Sophia has come into the pits and has changed off of those tires. And as I mentioned, not a fan of the Ori. But onto the hard tires. Okay, that's an interesting choice. Of course, we saw Dark Lord on the hards. I told you the hards, they used to be bad, but now they're okay. So, yeah.
They'll be waiting for you on your return, Mac. I'm sure. You just gotta pray that GT7, you know, the hard tires are still good when you jump back on.
Yeah. No, they'll change the physics when I come back, and then they'll be bad.
I think it's because they know that you'll be back. They just go, yeah, Mac's back. I'm going to change them back to how they were beforehand. But Sophia obviously playing the long game here with the Audi R8 going on to the hard tyres. That might see her to the end of the race. I think she's hoping that they'll see her to the end of the race. But yeah, obviously going back to Mercedes, he's lap by lap getting closer and closer to Midnight here in that year 1 very bright and colourful Porsche 911. I've got to say that I love the year 1 liveries. They're always very kind of colourful and bright, and you can always see them at any point on track. But Midnight and Mercedes making a little bit of a mistake there. We're going on to lap 37. Mercedes biding his time, I would say. He's currently got, I think, the better pace over Midnight in this last stint. And I'm sure we'll see that battle get closer and closer. But Coach also in the pits as well. I think that might be a potential retirement, because when I flicked through last lap, he was in the pits. So obviously Coach getting quite far into the race. Obviously good to see him back, and hopefully in race 2, obviously we'll see him start to finish. But I think a potential retirement there. Obviously Kulos out circulating in P11 at the minute, so the last of our current runners. Anyone catching your eye at the minute, Mac?
I think definitely, of course, we're still in the stage of the race where there's people on different strategies, but Sophie is doing pretty good race so far. Of course, is still out, hasn't pitted yet, but is doing a pretty good recovery considering having that incident early on in the race with Mercedes. has managed to recover it pretty well in P4 right now, which obviously won't be P4 after she pits, but once she does pit, it will probably be a better finish than she might have expected, or than I would have expected as well, considering having that collision in the opening lap. So would be proud. Should be proud of herself, and counting on the finish that she's getting, considering having that conundrum on the opening laps. We'll see where she finishes towards the end, and if she can gain more positions when she comes out in the new tires.
Yeah, obviously that final stint for a lot of drivers is going to be quite a crucial one, as but the looks of it, Charlie, Oliver, kind of Sophie, Caleb, Kai, they're kind of in and around the same part of the track as each other. So obviously their final stint is going to be very important for track position. As we see Midnight going into the inside line here, into the banked hairpin. Mercedes taking the normal line, maybe potentially. Not sure why Midnight went into the inside there, but you know he likes to catch people by surprise. But so hopefully he did that on purpose. But going back to the loyalness of Midnight and those McLarens, you don't want to see how many McLarens he owns in this game. It's it's a lot. Maybe not enough in some people's eyes, but it's quite a lot. At least I'd say 6 to 8 McLarens he owns in this game. So I think he might be McLaren mad.
I mean, that's fair enough. I think I have like 3 or 4 Mercedes for different liveries, so that's fair enough. I can respect it. I can respect it. See, yeah, no. I mean, when you're doing so many, I mean, when you're doing 4 seasons and you've got loads of liveries that you like, I mean, I have a few cars that I have like 3 or 4 Mercedes that have 3 or 4 different liveries I had on F1 or on them because they were all pretty good. Now, well, I mean, I consider pretty good because I made them, but like, well, like, as we see now, Sophie and Charlie battling here. That's actually interesting. Sophie doesn't have the best tires right now. Now a bit of a fight there up in P2, so that's one to watch is Midnight and Mercedes side by side here. Looks like Midnight finally has to nearly concede to Mercedes. Mercedes was catching the last few laps. Is going to be on the inside for this corner and is going to get ahead. Mercedes finally able to make a move, but Midnight is going to have the inside line for this corner. They're side by side, McLaren versus Porsche. It looks like Midnight might just get the upper hand here. Mercedes is going to have the exit as long as he keeps it on track, which he does. Oh, a bit of a wobble there. He's been getting up on the sausage curb. Bit of oversteer, but it's going to be inside right now as Mercedes is going to stay ahead. Will Midnight be able to challenge into turn 1? Might get the slipstream.
I've got to say, what a battle there between the two. Neither really wanted to give up their positions, but it was nice and clean, nice and respectful as well between the two, giving each other, you know, just enough space around the track, going side by side through some corners where normally you'd think it's impossible to go side by side. So well done, Mercedes and Midnight. That was a good showing there, you pair. Obviously, Midnight, like you say, has conceded that P6 to Mercedes, but all is not over yet. We're on lap 40. We've got 9 laps left, so plenty of opportunities to gain that position back. But I think everyone else is kind of gearing up for those final 9 laps. Obviously, the Dark Lord in P4 currently. I believe he's recently gone on to the pits and chose medium tyres, so with that tyre wear and fuel, he looks pretty much set to go to the end, as we see Sophie coming into the pits now, potentially going onto the soft set of tyres, challenging for that fastest lap, and that does release the Dark Lord into P3, and I think he's going to chase down Charlie, and maybe for the lead here, because his tyres are in a lot better condition to the people around him.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see what the 4GT driver can do towards the end of this race. Yeah, pretty good tires, but is the fuel going to last? Question. See the fuel there on the bottom left. Looks like only 1 or 2 laps potentially left, or 2 or 3, sorry, left in that car. So might have to pit again unless they can pull off a miracle towards the end of this 49 lap race. Lap 41 out of 49. Mercedes has gotten ahead of Midnight and has stayed ahead, with Jibril now catching the McLaren driver. They head down the straight now. Could see a move here for P6.
Yeah, and Jibril on the soft set of tyres as well, so he's gone aggressive into his last stint, trying to gain as many positions as he can. And obviously, Dark Lord as well. He's gone on the mediums. I think he pitted 3 or 4 laps ago now. But again, his tyres are looking in a lot better condition to the likes of kind of Charlie, Katie Kai. So he's definitely one to watch in the final few laps. But apart from that, Midnight might have come on the back of Mercedes here now, looking to reclaim that P5. And like you said, Jibril not too far away. He'll be on looking between this battle between the two drivers, seeing if he can maybe pinch a spot or two while they're slowing each other down, battling. Close between the two there. Midnight on the outside, Mercedes on the inside. I thought potentially there was going to be a little bit of an incident there because they braked a little bit later, but both managing to brake just enough before that turn 1. And Jibril is ever so, corner after corner, getting closer and closer to these two here. So again, another one to watch. Apart from that, everyone having a good race so far. Obviously, Oliver recently coming into pit, Sophie as well. They'll be trying to get up and chase the pack down. But yeah, I've got to say it's been a really good race so far. Mercedes picking up a half a second penalty there. That might cost him a position back to Midnight on this next lap. But what's got your eyes peeled, Mac? What are you currently watching on track?
Just want to mention Pedro for a bit. We haven't chatted about him for a while. Pedro was looking like a mighty force towards the start of this race, but it just looks like the strategy hasn't worked out the best for him. Of course, we've seen Pedro. He's a multiple-time podium finisher, of course, in the league, and is a well-respected name within the community. And they're just right now not having the best of races. Was up in the podium positions towards the start, battling. We saw just him struggling with tire wear. I'm just not sure if that M6 is well equipped for that high tire wear situations. He might have been struggling with the pace on that. We see Mercedes now fighting Midnight, and one thing this has done is got Jibril. He's got Jibril interested. Jibril is right on the gearbox of Midnight, and they're side by side now, Midnight and Mercedes, and it might be 3 wide as we head down the straight here. Mercedes is going to drop out because of that penalty, and Jibril is going to head to the outside line. Midnight wisely covering the inside. Is going to stay ahead for now. So that means Midnight's now up in the 5th, and Jibril into 6th, and Mercedes into 7th.
Yeah, Jibril definitely went, yes, thank you, I'll take that. And he's put himself in a really good position to fight Midnight on this next lap. As we see Charlie coming into pit, 3% fuel. I'm sure it'll be kind of a little splash and dash for Charlie here. Take on a few laps fuel, change maybe to the soft tyres, challenge for that fastest lap, or obviously to try and minimise that time loss, sorry. But we've got Jibril again, he's eager, very eager at this point to get in front of Midnight here. Obviously Midnight's tyres are starting to get to that point where they might drop off or kind of fall off of a cliff, as we've seen previously with those medium tyres. Obviously I think it's for him potentially onto lap 24? No, 24, 14-ish with those tyres, maybe 15, maybe more. So they're going to get to that point shortly where they'll be struggling for grip. That will obviously play into Jibril's hands a little bit more, as Jibril looks like he's going to the inside line here on this back straight. The Ford GT, obviously we know it's got a lot of top speed. Does it have enough top speed to get in front of the McLaren? No, Midnight breaks that a little bit later, but Jibril's got the inside line. The two going side by side, but Midnight is victorious in this little battle at the moment.
Yeah, Midnight managed to pull out. See someone kick out some gravel there. I'm not sure who that was. Maybe Pedro off of the hairpin. But yeah, no, Midnight managed to keep that position. That was a good defending from Midnight. Just breaking later there, taking the outside line and managing to keep that exit on the exit of the corner. as we just see now. Of course, Charlie pitted, not managing to make it to the end on the fuel that they had. So in P7 right now, which is not that bad, managed to get out ahead of Pedro. That's not that bad. Will be able to potentially catch up to this bunch. You can see on new soft tires, Charlie could be a factor here in the last 5 laps of this race.
Yeah, he's one to watch for sure. It'll be kind of again like that silent assassin. He's like, don't forget about me, guys. But I don't know if you spotted it. I think it was the penultimate corner. Midnight made a little mistake, and Jabril definitely capitalised on it. Manages to get in front of Midnight on that start-finish straight, and obviously Midnight trying to make up for lost ground, trying to get back to fight with Jabril. But again, he's kind of in no man's land in between Mercedes and Jabril, so I'm sure Midnight will be looking in front, but in that rearview mirror to kind of keep the distance to Mercedes. But again, Charlie, he's in the prime position at the moment to get into this battle between these three here just in front of him. Pedro might be a little bit too far back. He's only a corner or so behind Charlie, but I wouldn't write Pedro off just yet. But obviously it'll be a little bit more of a challenge for Pedro to get onto the back of that Mercedes Midnight and Jabril battle. But just having a flick through the grid, obviously I've got to say everyone really has had a pretty good first race back. Oh, Mercedes into the pits, lap 45. Mercedes is into the pits. I'm not sure if that was kind of an error or kind of a tactical one where he's going to go onto the softs and go all guns a-blazing and try and set the fastest lap and try and catch up to this group again. But quite interesting strategy call there.
Yeah, it seems like some people not having enough fuel, not calculating correctly the amount of fuel to get to the end of the race. We saw Charlie pitting towards the finishing stages of this race, and of course now we've seen Mercedes, and we see now Charlie is side by side with Midnight into the right hand banked hairpin and is ahead clear with those nice fresh soft tires. Of course Midnight's going to try around the outside there, but it's not going to be enough as Charlie manages to stay ahead and will be setting his sights now to get ahead of Jabril and get up into P4.
Yes, and towards the front of the grid, Sophia has passed the back marker of Koulios, but behind Koulios is Dark Lord, who is currently sat in P2, so he won't want to be held up by Koulios for too long. Will Koulios listen to the blue flags this time? Obviously, he let Sophia through. Obviously, I'm not sure because he made kind of an error there coming out of the corner, and Sophia obviously capitalised it and went past. But Dark Lord into this hairpin, he'll want to try and get past Koulios, but I don't think Koulios will make it easy for him. He's obviously still on the racing line here. I don't know, obviously Dark Lord flashing his lights, his intentions are that he wants to get past Koulios as soon as he can. This will be costing obviously Dark Lord a lot of time and a lot of downforce. Obviously in that battle with Sophia. I didn't realise the two were so close, the Dark Lord and Sophia, in these final few stages.
It seems Koulios not making it easy for Dark Lord to get past there. Of course, Koulios and Sophia, I believe, teammates?
They are, yes, I believe so. I can't remember their team name. I know it's quite an interesting one, but they are teammates. Koulios into the pits.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Just coming straight into the pits there after that. So I don't know, Koulios might be going for fastest lap or something. Current fastest lap held by Kai, 120.962. Quite wicked fast actually. We've seen an average about 122s, 121s among the top three this race. So it will be just to see if Koulios has anything to say about that.
Yeah. Obviously the NSX, as you saw earlier, very speedy on those kind of turns and the S's, but not so on the straights. So it might be a tall ask for Koulios to set the fastest lap, but why not? He might as well go for it. But obviously we are on to lap 48, nearly 49. So the closing lap of this race will definitely be interesting between Sophia and the Dark Lord. Will the Dark Lord be able to make up for that lost time behind Koulios? We shall see. But we've got a little bit of battle between the two Ford GTs. Charlie going onto the inside line, Jabril holding that outside line, and Charlie manages to make that move done. But Jabril isn't done yet. I'm sure he'll be kind of challenging Charlie here. But two Ford GTs racing side by side there. Pedro obviously on looking this action. But I've got to say, going back to Katie Dekai, obviously starting, I think, P11. He's had a tour to get to P3, so like I said, it's his favourite position, being on the podium. But Mac, do you want to take away? Obviously, if we go on board with Sophia here, she's in the closing half of the race. Do you want to take it away and commentate her win?
Yeah, sure. Everyone's getting really low on fuel here. It's getting quite close to the wire. I think all the drivers, they're about 2% left fuel for most people. So going to be interesting to see if anyone runs out of fuel, because I think some of the guys further behind have a bit less fuel. But we see now Sophia, Dark Lord, quite close coming up to the line, but Sophia ultimately is the one in the lead right now. I'm not going to do commentator's curse. I'm not going to say she's won yet, because anything can happen in the last two corners. But Sophia right now is looking like she's going to win this race and win the first feature race of the season here at Lago Maggiore. And Dark Lord is trying his hardest to catch up to the back of that Audi R8. We round the final corner now, and it is going to be Sophia in the R8 that takes the win here in Italy, followed by Dark Lord in second. Kai is going to take the last step on the podium in the Nissan GTR. Charlie doing an amazing effort in his first feature race of the season in the Ford GT, rounding these final few corners with, of course, the Ford GT brother behind in Jabril in 5th position. Pedro coming home in 6th ahead of Midnight, so managing to gain a few positions there at the end with all the pit stops. So not a bad finish for the Portuguese driver. Midnight coming home in 7th, with Sophie in 8th. As I mentioned, Sophie managed to gain those positions after that collision in the opening laps. Oliver coming home in 9th was a strong start for him, but unfortunately just not closing it out in the end ultimately. Mercedes in P10 after that late race pit stop, with Koulias in 11th, and Coach of course retired, though in 12th position there originally, but retiring from the race in the pit lane.
Yeah, beautifully done, Mac. And obviously we did lose Kirk. Well, it wasn't pretty early, but kind of like halfway into the race. Obviously, good show from him as well. But hopefully next week he'll feel a little bit more comfortable in that Viper. But yeah, what can I say about that race? It was definitely made our jobs harder, Mac, for sure. Obviously, there was a lot of battles to keep our eyes on. But what did you think of the race?
I think it was a good race overall. Pretty interesting strategies. It was nice to see the hard tire come back. It was good to see drivers running that again. Of course, most of the time it's usually drivers alternating between the mediums and soft. We had a good variety of strategies today, which was nice to see. Of course, we saw Dark Lord profiting from that strategy, who started in the last position, finished in the 2nd position after starting on the hard tires. So definitely paying off for some people, not paying off for others, especially the people who started on the soft tires. Not doing the best, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it was a really, really good race, and some good overtakes, good battles, and overall, both the races were fairly strong.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And obviously, you know, I'd like to say obviously race 1 is where kind of the championship battles all kick off. It is pretty early in the championship. But I'm sure, you know, Katie Dekai, Dark Lord and Sophia will definitely enjoy a podium this early on into the championship. But I've got to say, you know, a definite shout out to our technical rookies of the season, which is obviously Charlie, Oliver and Mercedes. They've had a pretty good, you know, first showing in the Nighthawk Racing F1 RST, and I can't wait to see, you know, how they get on throughout the rest of the season. Who would you say is our rookie of the day out of the 3?
That's just unfair making me do that. Yeah. I mean, if I have to be honest, I'd say all 3 of them. I can't choose. It's not fair.
Yeah, it's quite a tough one. Yeah, I mean, all three of them have had, their first introduction to, the sprint race, which is obviously very fast paced, and obviously the feature race is a little bit kind of more strategic. I mean, all three of them doing a remarkable job in both races, so it's very hard to call. I don't know.
I'd say if I had to choose, I'd say maybe OS, right, Oliver.
Yeah, I'd back that. Showing that Alpha 4C shouldn't be forgotten about, like you said earlier. Showing us that it's just as fast as the other ones. It's still not my favourite car in the game because technically I just can't drive it. Whatever I do with it, I just can't drive it. But I'm glad Oliver can drive it, and showing us his skills behind that Alpha 4C. But slightly different question. Who would you say is your overall driver of the day?
If I'd have to say Dark Lord. I think he won in the sprint race, and then of course we had last to second. I mean that's an incredible feat, and going for that alternate strategy is quite a gamble, and it paid off in the end. He got P2 when he needed it, and P1, P2, not a bad start to the season, I have to say.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you there. Obviously, we all know that Dark Lord, aka Lewis, some people may know him. In the past seasons, he's struggled with kind of internet. People that have raced alongside him, they never know where he is on track. Sometimes with his kind of disappearing act, he might be a corner ahead, he might be a corner behind, or right on top of your car. But it's good to see that now he's got that sorted. That we can get back to racing alongside him, and like I say, he's hit the ground running. And I think he'll be very happy with how he started this season, and hopefully, maybe if he can carry on in that form in that Supra, he'll be able to either win the championship or definitely put up a fight. Obviously, saying that though, Sophia and Katie the car not too far behind, I believe, in the championship, so he's got his work cut out for him already.
Yeah, I mean, Dark Lord is now leading the championship with that race. So, I mean, that was a pretty strong opening race for him, and I'm sure he would have loved to get P1 in the feature race as well. But it was really a strong showing from him.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I think obviously going into next week, Sardinia A Reverse is going to be a slightly different track for the drivers next week. It's not a track that we go to very often. It's got a lot of barriers and walls and grass as well. But yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult track for the drivers next week. But looking forward to seeing how everyone gets on. I don't know about you, Mac, but let's go and have a look at what some of the drivers had to say after the race.
Nice one.
I had fun and had some good little battles with drivers. Took the sprint race and a bit more to warm back up to GT7, but I enjoyed getting back on GT after a little break.
Round 1 of Season 4 at Lago Maggiore West. It felt great to be back on track again, but I'd say it was a round with mixed feelings. Qualifying was a bit underwhelming, I'd say. I was 2 tenths up on my time going into the final set of corners on my final lap, which would have been enough to get me, I believe, a P4 at the time. But I kept making lots of mistakes throughout all the other laps, just pretty inconsistent. Then sprint race was actually a really surprising and positive race for me. I felt really confident with the car, made some good moves, had really good battles with Jibril and Kirk towards the end. It just felt like overall I was in control of things. And then feature race came, which is, I'd say, one of my stronger points, but this time I really messed up my strategy. I had something in mind and then just thought about a different strategy on the day. Just really extended my first stint for no reason. If I knew that I could make the medium tires last, but considering what I decided to do on the day, it was definitely the wrong decision. Could have done a lot better. Hopefully this won't happen again. It's a bit of a shame because I also didn't feel completely comfortable with the car in the feature for some reason. Had really good pace on the different tire compounds in practice, but then when it actually came to the race, I kept making mistakes and the car just didn't feel the same for some reason. I didn't drive to the best of my abilities either. I was struggling through a few sections of the track, but we move on, and now on to round 2 at Sardinia. Hopefully I can turn things around and do even better.
The sprint race went well, P2 to start the season off, but the feature race didn't go to plan. I got a good start and was battling for P4 at least. Then on lap 10 contact with another wrecked my race, so the strat I was doing didn't work but had great side-to-side racing with Midnight. Without out the accident possible P8 or P7.
Please check out the blue lobby on our Nighthawk Racing YouTube. Next round, Sardinia A Reverse.